And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, September 25th. I am the host for today's program, Paul Domain, and many of the stories read here can also be found in our publication, News from Indian Country, or online at IndianCountryNews.com. And here are some of the news stories for the day. The South Carolina couple who adopted a Cherokee girl at the center of a years-long custody dispute came to Oklahoma last month, vowing not to leave without the child. On Monday night, September 23rd, Matt and Melanie Capobianco took custody of 4-year-old Veronica. Hours earlier, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled that it didn't have jurisdiction in the case that had already been considered in the U.S. Supreme Court and had raised questions about jurisdiction and tribal sovereignty. Supporters of Dustin Brown, the girl's biological father, says he put up a hard fight and battle for the right to keep Veronica, but that he willfully cooperated with the court's order. We are deeply, deeply saddened by the events of today, Cherokee Nation Attorney General Todd Hembry said in a written statement. Veronica Brown will always be a Cherokee citizen, and although she may have left the Cherokee Nation for now, she will never leave our hearts. The transfer came hours after the Oklahoma highest court dissolved a temporary court order that had kept the child in the Cherokee Nation with her father and his family. The Pennsylvania town where famed athlete Jim Thorpe was laid to rest 6 decades ago asked a federal appeals court last week to throw out a ruling that could clear the way for his remains to be moved to Indian land in Oklahoma. A federal district judge erred when he ruled the town of Jim Thorpe amounts to a museum under the 1990 Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. The town's lawyers wrote in an appeal seeking to block the removal of the athlete's body. Thorpe was a football, baseball, and track star who won the decathlon and pentathlon in the 1912 Olympics. He passed away without a will in 1953 at the age of 64. After Oklahoma's governor balked at the cost of a planned monument to the athlete, third wife Patricia had Thorpe's body removed in the midst of his funeral service and sent it to northeastern Pennsylvania, where she struck a deal with 2 merging towns to build a memorial and name the new town after him. Thorpe's surviving sons have been fighting to move the body to Sac and Fox land in Oklahoma, where he was born. A General Electric Company's subsidiary wants a federal judge to reconsider this month's ruling, blocking it from trucking giant oil field equipment on a winding Idaho highway. The company late last week filed an appeal in U.S. District Court in Boise, saying Judge B. Line Windmill committed serious errors of law and fact when he blocked the so-called Megaload from traveling U.S. Highway 12's federally designated Wild and Scenic River Corridor. Windmill halted the shipments, at least until Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest managers can assess impacts of the 225-foot-long, 640,000-pound water evaporator en route before consulting with Nez Perce tribes over their concerns. The GE unit, which has said it would lose millions if its equipment doesn't arrive at northern Alberta's tar sands on schedule, says it's facing imminent and continuing irreparable harm. Hundreds of people from 3 states converged this last weekend on the tiny southwestern North Dakota town of Leith to support the community of 16 people as the leader of a white supremacist group paid a visit. The event drew a heavy law enforcement presence that included a dozen officers in riot gear. Jeff Schoep, leader of the National Socialist Movement, traveled from Detroit, Michigan to hold a town hall meeting the afternoon of September 22nd in support of Craig Cobb, a white supremacist who's been buying up property in Leith with the hope of developing an all-white enclave. Cobb, 61, who was wanted in Canada for allegedly promoting hatred in Vancouver, British Columbia in 2010, was drawn to Leith by jobs in the western North Dakota oil fields. A group of 150 American Indians from several reservations in the Dakotas marched down Leith's main street along with a couple hundred people with the group Unity ND, some of whom arrived in a school bus. "We won't condone outsiders coming in to spread bigotry in our homeland," said Chase Iron Eyes, 35, a member of the Standing Rock Sioux and leader of the protest group. A New Mexico organization has received a federal grant to expand efforts aimed at boosting the development of Native American businesses U.S. Representative Michelle Lujan Grisham announced that New Mexico Community Capital was awarded a grant worth more than $400,000 from the U.S. Department of Commerce. The New Mexico Democrat says the investment will lead to much-needed innovation and job creation as tribal communities continue to recover from the economic downturn. The money will be used to provide technical assistance in creating culturally aligned sustainable businesses. The initiative aims to reduce the skills gap for tribal employees and capitalize on sectors such as energy, water, and agriculture. One federal agency is penalizing another for water quality violations on the Hopi Reservation in northeastern Arizona. The Environmental Protection Agency says the Department of Interior's Bureau of Indian Affairs will pay a $136,000 penalty under the settlement. According to the EPA, the BIA exceeded drinking water standards for arsenic and had inadequate monitoring, but is now in compliance. The violations involve the public water supply system at Keams Canyon. In 2011, order by the EPA resulted in the BIA spending nearly $1 million to install and operate an arsenic treatment system there. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to say miigwech for joining with us and come back again soon.